17th, 1962. 4:37 p.m. Woodlawn Cemetery, the Bronx. Rain hammered 200. Umbrellas, black suits, black dresses. Black caskets. Two of them. Bumpy Johnson stood between two open graves. 10 feet apart, hand shaking on his mother's coffin. The priest spoke Latin. Blessings over the dead. Both dead. 1. Woman who'd fed Harlem for 22 years. 1. Man who tried to kill her son 18 hours. Earlier at her funeral, $75,000. That was the contract price the Genovese family paid Vincent Lombardi to mess up sacred ground. Vinny got within 15 feet of Bumpy, gun-drawn finger on the trigger. Now he was going into the earth next to the woman he'd tried to dishonor. The mourners saw one burial. Bumpy saw two. One with prayers. One with justice. To understand what happened in those 18 hours, you need to understand what the Genovese family didn't. You don't touch a man's mother and live to tell about it. Bumpy Johnson's mother wasn't just his mother. She was Harlem's conscience. The woman who could tell the neighborhood's most dangerous man to sit down, eat, and remember where he came from. When she died, March 15, 1962. Heart failure. Age 71. Something in Bumpy broke that nobody had seen break before. For 3 days, he sat in her apartment on 139th Street. Didn't eat. Didn't sleep, just sat in her chair, breathing the lavender soap smell she'd left behind. His men stood guard outside, handled business, turned away visitors because Bumpy wasn't handling anything. He was grieving. The funeral was set for March 17th. Over 500 people expected. She'd earned every one of them. 22 years running a soup kitchen on 135th Street. Fed 300 families a week. During the Depression. Never asked for payment, never asked questions, just fed people. Politicians would come. Hustlers, shopkeepers, families she'd helped. Everyone knew that behind Bumpy's reputation, behind the wars with the Italian families, behind the violence and power plays, his mother was the reason he had rules. She was the reason he protected Harlem instead of just bleeding it. The service would be at a church in Harlem, then burial at Woodlawn Cemetery in the Bronx. Simple. Dignified. A woman who'd lived quietly. Deserved to rest quietly. Bumpy planned every detail himself. The flowers, the pallbearers, the route from church to cemetery. He wanted it perfect. For 3 days, he was just a son burying his mother. Not a gangster. Just a man in grief. And 200 miles away in Newark, the Genovese family saw exactly what they'd been waiting for. Vulnerability. March 16, 1962. 2 p.m. Newark, New Jersey. A social club on Mulberry Street where the Genovese family did business behind velvet curtains and locked doors. Veto. Genovese sat at the head of a long oak table. Cigar smoke hung thick under the low ceiling. 5 captains around him. On the table, a photograph of Bumpy Johnson. The mother's dead, Genovese said, tapping ash into a crystal tray. Funerals tomorrow, 3 p.m. Woodlawn Cemetery. He slid the photo across the table. He'll be exposed. For years, Bumpy Johnson had been untouchable. Always surrounded, always watching, always 3 steps ahead. But funerals were different. Funerals made men human. We're talking about hitting him at a cemetery, one captain said, at his mother's burial. Genovese's eyes went cold. I'm talking about ending a problem. We've tried force. We've tried money. The man doesn't bend, doesn't break, doesn't have weaknesses we can buy, except one. Tomorrow he'll be standing at a grave with tears in his eyes. That's our window. The contract was simple. $75,000. One shot during the cemetery service. Disappear in the confusion. They needed someone good. Someone who wouldn't hesitate just because the setting was sacred. Vincent Lombardi took the contract. Within an hour. Vinny was 34-12. Successful contracts, never caught. Never questioned. He specialized in difficult targets, clean work, no mess. He had a reputation for staying calm, blending in, making hits look like bad luck. He wanted this job for two reasons. The money. $75,000 could buy a new life. But more than that, the name. The man who killed Bumpy Johnson. That name would open every door from Newark to Chicago. Business is business, Vinny told Genovese when he shook on the deal. Even at a funeral, he didn't see it as disrespectful. He saw it as professional. March 17th, 5 a.m. Vinny left Newark. Black suit, black tie, 38 special in a shoulder holster. By 2 p.m. he was in the Bronx. By 3 o'clock p.m. he'd be rich. March 15th, 1962. 6 p.m. 12 hours after his mother's death. Bumpy sat in her apartment on 139th Street. The funeral home had taken her body at noon. The room still smelled like her lavender soap, the chicken soup she'd been making 2 days before she collapsed. The phone rang. Bumpy stared at it. 4 rings. 5. He picked up. Mr. Johnson. Jerome, parking attendant. Near the Newark docks. One of Bumpy's eyes in New Jersey. A man nobody noticed. Saw something today. Talk. Genovese's captains, all 5, went into the Mulberry Street Club at 1 p.m. Stayed 2 hours. When they came out, Vincent Lombardi went in. Bumpy's jaw got tight. Vincent Lombardi. Specialist. The kind of man you called when you needed someone dead and didn't care about the setting. You sure it was Lombardi? Positive. Got the plate. Jersey tags. BNX 4712. He stayed inside 30 minutes. Came out. Smiling. Bumpy stood. Walked to the window. Below, Harlem moved through its evening rhythm. His neighborhood, his people, his mother's legacy. He understood immediately. They were going to hit him at the funeral. His mother wasn't even in the ground yet, and the Genovese family was already planning to spray her burial with his blood. They thought he'd be vulnerable, distracted, too broken to see it coming. They were right about one thing. The grief was real. They were wrong about everything else. Bumpy had 2 choices. Cancel the public funeral. Keep it small, private, safe, rob them of their moment, or let them come, let them try, and teach them what happens when you cross lines that shouldn't exist. He looked at his mother's empty chair. The one she'd sat in for 40 years. The one where she'd told him again and again that some things were sacred. That family mattered, that respect wasn't about fear. My mother deserves her farewell, Bumpy said to the empty room. Over the next 48 hours, he would plan 2 things, a funeral and a burial the Genovese family would never forget. March 17th, 1962, 8 a.m. Bumpy's apartment. Kitchen table. 3 men sat with him. Illinois Gordon, his lieutenant for 12 years. 2 others who'd taken bullets. Done time, kept every secret. Bumpy spoke in a whisper. Vincent Lombardi is coming. We let him. Illinois looked up. Let him. You and 3 others position as mourners, spread out 30, 40, 50 feet from the grave. Watch him. When he draws, you take him. Quiet. No shots. During my mother's service. And after? After you walk him to the second grave. The men went still. Bumpy had purchased the plot 3 days ago, adjacent to his mother's Had it dug yesterday, 11 p.m., while the cemetery was locked. His people handled it personally. 6 feet deep. Ready. Illinois leaned forward. Why let him get close? We could take him. Before the service. Bumpy's eyes went cold. Because I want the Genovese family to know their best man got within 15 feet. And it still wasn't enough. I want them to understand that even at my mother's funeral, even at my lowest, I'm still 3 moves ahead. This isn't about one hitman. This is about a message that lasts. He stood, walked to the window. Dawn light cutting through Harlem streets. You don't mess up a funeral. You don't target a man's mother. And you don't walk into my city thinking grief makes me weak. The men checked their weapons. 38 revolvers concealed under suit jackets, no radios, hand signals only. Bumpy turned back. Nothing happens until my mother is blessed and lowered. She gets her moment, her peace. Then we give Vincent Lombardi his grave. 3:47 p.m. Woodlawn Cemetery. The priest raised his hand for the final blessing. Rain had started an hour earlier. Steady. Now. 200 people under black umbrellas. The casket sat above the grave. Flowers. Soaked, petals falling. Bumpy stood at the edge, hand on the polished wood, tears on his face mixing with rain. Real. But his eyes, even through grief, were watching. 30 foot back, Vincent Lombardi stood among mourners, black suit, black tie. Umbrella tilted to hide his right hand, the hand inside his jacket. Fingers wrapped around a .38 special. He watched Bumpy. Watched the crowd shift and thin. Calculated. The priest finished. The casket began going down, ropes creaking, wood disappearing into earth. Bumpy's hand stayed on it until the last second. Pulled away. His shoulders shook. 4:15 p.m. mourners moved forward. Condolences, hugs. The crowd thinned. Vinny started walking. Slow, natural. Just another mourner approaching. 20 feet, then 15. 4 men scattered in the crowd. Didn't move. Waiting. Vinny's hand tightened. On the gun. Drew it. Kept it low, hidden by umbrella and bodies. Aimed at the back of Bumpy's head. Finger touched the trigger. Illinois Gordon stepped behind him, gun barrel to spine. Don't move. 3 other men closed in. Tight circle. 1 grabbed the .38 from Vinny's hand. 3 seconds. Professional, silent. They walked him backward through the trees. Nobody noticed. The crowd was watching Bumpy, offering comfort. Focused on grief. 50 feet away, hidden by rain and oak branches, the second grave waited. Open, empty, ready. 4:22 p.m., 50 feet from the ceremony. Through trees and rain, Vincent Lombardi knelt. At the edge of the second grave, 6 feet deep, fresh dirt piled beside it. Waiting. Bumpy Johnson stood over him. Rain pouring down. Illinois Gordon and 3 men formed a semicircle, armed, silent. You came to my mother's funeral, Bumpy said, his voice quiet, controlled. Stood on sacred ground with a gun. Vinny's mouth opened. Business. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. Bumpy let the words hang. You were going to shoot me while I buried my mother, while I said goodbye. And you call that business? The Genovese family? The Genovese family forgot something. Bumpy stepped closer. There are lines. Even in our world, family is sacred. Mothers are sacred. Funerals are sacred. You cross those lines, you don't get to walk away. Vinny's eyes went wide. You knew. You knew I was coming. 2 days. I let you come. Let you stand there with your gun. Let you think you had a shot. Bumpy crouched down, eye level with Vinny. You can send 10 hitmen, 100. Doesn't matter. I will always know. I will always be ready. I will always be 3 moves ahead. You thought my grief made me weak. He stood. My grief made me dangerous. Bumpy looked at Illinois, nodded. The shot echoed through trees. Vinny fell forward into the grave. Bumpy stood at the edge. Rain washing over him. No anger, no satisfaction. Just cold certainty. You wanted to be buried in New York. Here you are, next to a woman worth 1,000 of you. Illinois and the men picked up shovels. Dirt hitting body, rain turning earth to mud. Bumpy walked back through the trees. At his mother's grave the last mourners were leaving. He knelt in mud beside fresh earth, put his hand on wet soil. Whispered words nobody heard. Behind him, 50 feet away, the second grave was filling. 2 graves side by side, one honored with prayers, one marked with justice. Newark, March 17th, 8 p.m. The Genovese captain sat in the Mulberry Street Club. Same table where they'd sent Vinny to his death, waiting for the call. By 9 o'clock p.m., worry. By 10 p.m., they sent a soldier to check. He came back at 11:30 p.m. with nothing. Funeral ended at 5 o'clock p.m. Cemetery locked at 6 p.m. No sign of Vinny. No word, no body. Gone. Next morning, whispers started. Harlem. Barbershops, corner stores, jazz clubs. Where Bumpy's people gathered. Vinny Lombardi tried to hit Bumpy Johnson at his mother's funeral. By the end of the week, the full story spread through New York's underworld. Like smoke. Someone talked. Maybe one of Bumpy's men. Maybe Bumpy wanted them to talk. The truth came out in pieces. Vinny had been there at the cemetery. Got within 15 feet, drew his gun. Bumpy had known for 2 days. Let him come. Let him try. Then came the detail that made every mobster from Boston to Baltimore go silent. Bumpy buried him at the cemetery, next to his mother's grave, 10 feet apart. The symbolism hit like a hammer. The man who tried to mess up sacred ground became part of it. Permanent. Veto. Genovese was furious. But underneath the fury, something else, respect. Fear, understanding. We don't touch him, Genovese told his captains. 3 days later, the man buried someone at his mother's funeral and walked away clean. You don't move against someone who operates like that. The other 4 families got the message. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just dangerous. He was untouchable. In Harlem, the story spread with pride. Their protector was still protecting, but crossing him, especially on sacred ground, and mercy wasn't an option. The legend grew. The funeral burial. The day Bumpy Johnson proved that grief didn't make him weak. It made him more dangerous than ever. Years later, the 2 graves still sit at Woodlawn Cemetery, side by side. Bumpy visited his mother's grave every week until 1968. Heart attack. Same year, Martin Luther King died. 6 years after he'd buried her. 6 years after he'd buried Vincent Lombardi 10 feet away. He never acknowledged the second grave. Never removed it. Let it stay as permanent reminder. The story became Harlem legend. Passed down through generations, told in barbershops, on stoops, in jazz clubs at 2 a.m. The day their protector showed the Italian mob what happened when you violated sacred ground. You don't touch a man's mother. You don't mess up funerals. You don't mistake mourning for weakness. The mob learned something else. That day, the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the most guns. It's the one who knows what's sacred and will kill to protect it. The one who plans for your move before you make it. Vincent Lombardi wanted to make a name by killing Bumpy Johnson at a funeral. Instead, he made a name by being buried at one. That's the difference between thinking you're 3 moves ahead and actually being there. Bumpy Johnson died in 1968. Never lost Harlem, never bowed, and never forgot that some things matter more than strategy or survival. If this story hit different, hit that like button. Subscribe for more Bumpy Johnson stories dropping every week. Next video, we're covering how Bumpy walked into a police precinct, unarmed, and walked out with the cops working for him. In Harlem, respect wasn't given, it was earned. And Bumpy Johnson earned his in blood and brilliance.